Today on Bench Talk, we're going to cover Holden, it's come to an end.
Is the DeLorean making a comeback?
And why aren't people buying electric cars?
Gee, I wonder why. Did you hear about the guy who got done on his phone riding a horse?
Riding a horse. He was riding along a New South Wales rural road, travelling at an estimated speed of 10 kilometres an hour.
Estimated.
Oh, and you'd be able to read the sign back there with the big 10 on it, wouldn't you?
Holding a mobile phone to his ear, and he didn't have the right hands-free device fitted to the animal.
You think I'm talking shit?
So you should have had the Bluetooth set up on the animal, or just bolt that to the main?
Plug in some USB power. He would have been, yeah, Barry, I'll be there in 10 minutes, get those fish on the barbie. What do you reckon?
Can I see your license, please?
He had to plead guilty.
It's already gone to court.
Oh yeah, he had to plead guilty because he concedes that the horse was in motion.
I thought you had to have an engine. I mean, that's serious real horsepower, but I thought you had to have an engine
10k, he's going to wipe off 5.
to be considered a vehicle.
I guess he's moving and he's on the road. The biggest news that I've seen in the automotive scene for quite some time, but probably the most obvious news that I think everyone thought was just around the corner for about the last year and a half. Holden, dead. Not a good thing to say, but it's all over.
Terrible for the people who work, and a lot of people, there's a big, it's not just the people at Holden, there's a big supporting network, which obviously a lot of this happened when the Commodore and Falcon stopped production. A lot of people lost their jobs then.
Yeah, I think more people lost their jobs then than now, but still, this is like the worst kept, I wouldn't call it a secret, but a lot of people in the industry knew this was coming.
The writing's been on the wall for the last few years, really.
What actually surprises me more are just the complete and utter flogs I see on social media, just writing things like, good riddance, who gives a crap, Holden dead, who cares? I don't understand this. Why would you be happy that an Australian car manufacturing is dead? I don't understand that. They're good riddance to what? People have lost their jobs? We won't have any Aussie manufacturing again? And they're happy about that?
That's already finished, but they're happy that people are losing their jobs. When I read comments like that, I think these are people who've never run a business in their life.
No.
Never been self-employed, had to employ other people, or had their own overheads. They just rock up to their crap job, clock on, clock off, and they're miserable, effectively.
And then what? They'll be the same people then complain that, oh, there's not a car I want to... I don't get... That's like saying if Kmart closed, good riddance, Kmart's closed. Well, why would you be happy that a business is closed? I don't understand it with anything.
Doesn't I'm just making up a statistic, but isn't it like 60-odd% of the workforce is employed by small business?
Yeah, but Holden's not a small business.
No, I mean, like, how can it be a good thing that a business closes ever?
Oh, no, that's what I'm saying. When I see comments like that, you're just idiots. But, I mean, it's terrible that Holden's closed.
Do you honestly think it would have made any difference if they'd badged that Holden a Holden insignia on?
No. No, they wouldn't have sold any.
I don't think the Commodore or the insignia was the problem. Looking at it, I wasn't going to buy one, but I don't think that specific car was the problem overall. Like, their whole range was...
Oh, it was not good.
There was nothing there that was sort of... I don't know. Every car in the sector, in a segment they had, I looked at it and be like...
Why would you buy a Holden?
I'd buy, 3 other cars before I'd even look at that Holden. There's something about them. They just look like...
It's interesting too, as Holden came out and said that's closing, in the same space they were saying the big banger, the big Chevys, the pickups.
Oh, the Silverados. The 1500.
Yeah, you'll see them in showrooms in a matter of, the time we've aired this, they'll probably be almost out.
Yeah.
But they're from HSV, is that right?
Well, that's another thing. Isn't HSV going to be renamed?
I read they can't be called HSV technically because it stands for Holden, and they could be renamed to GMSV. That just rolls off the tongue, that one.
GMSV.
That doesn't work at all. It's too many letters there.
So all these cars now are going to have some bow tie badges on them?
Well, how expensive will the Silverados be? Be well over 100 grand, surely.
Yeah, they'd have to be. The problem now, Mustangs come out of they're already coming out of the factory right-hand drive. As soon as they bring in any car, and they've got to add on that conversion price.
The Camaros are outrageous. The Camaros are obviously the competitor to the Mustang, but they're not even in the same ballpark price range.
No.
Not even comparable.
No, you can go and put a supercharger and modify wheels, everything on your Mustang, and you still haven't come up to the
If
sticker
you
price of the
compare
Camaro.
a Camaro and a Mustang at the moment, the Mustang's got to just win hands down because it's 2/3 of the price. Like the fact the price just outrules everything about the cars. I'm sure they're similar to drive, and you go, one's 30% or is it 50% more expensive?
They'll sell those Silverados.
The Silverados have a very niche market. I still don't understand in Australia, we have the smallest car parks. It's not like the States. They have these massive lots and these huge car spaces.
If you want a car for towing, that's your main purpose, whether you live city or rural. If you want something to tow, whether it's a car or a boat or a horse, something like those a horse float, something like those Silverados are easily the best things to tow with. They're so much better built than these Thailand
tractors. Just don't use the phone
tractors.
on the horse, that's all.
Don't use a phone. Yeah, but you look at something like the Ram, right? They've sold, I think, 5,000 odd of them in Australia. The entry price is about 80. But most, as far as I'm aware, most of the sales are the Laramie model. And they start at like 102.
And these big pickups, like the big Yankee-style pickups, I think their towing capacity
4.5.
off a regular tow bar, I think is 3.5, and a more upgraded one, I think is 4.5.
Yeah, I think
so they're miles ahead of as you said, the Thailand tractor.
Yeah, they're terrible. I don't understand their popularity. But the Rams, for example, because they've got an $80,000 one, it gets people in the door. And then they had no intention of spending another 20 grand. But hey, here's one. There's the base model for 80. Now we've got a better one. Come and look at it. See, I look at the Subaru. They'll sell them, but they need something more like 70,
a little bit lower.
grand.
Well, the Rams, I think they sold 2,800 last year, and it was more. Yeah. It was more than what they anticipated.
Oh yeah. Their sales have been really good. But it shows people still want a V8. A V8 Ute.
Well, the first comment I saw, a lot of people saying with the Silverado, it's just got a little V8 in it. Where's the big Duramax? But I don't know what the price difference between the two. When they say little V8, it comes with, I'm assuming, an LS3. It's 6.2.
The Silverado.
Yeah, what is it?
No,
sorry, it's
not an LS.
It's an LT. So I'm selling the LS world. But it'd be an LT then, would it? 6.
I can't remember. It's the later model engine. I can't remember the specific code of it, but it's not an LS. They don't use LS engines.
6.2 litre.
They make about 420 on horsepower, but they're just good all-round torque, perfect towing car. Yeah, I mean, I've been in a few of these models. They're good. You put a car on the back or whatever you've got on the back, and you don't even feel it. They're great. But back to Holden. I mean, it sucks. You look at how different the car landscape is now to when we got our license. There's so many more cars though.
Brands.
Like just cars in general, overall, like you can choose from. There are so many cars on the road compared to when we...
Yeah, like you've got like, say, Mazda or Mitsubishi, they have like 14 flavours of an SUV. Each one is about this much longer. Like, there's so many.
But a big difference now is everyone wants it. I want it now, right? Like this, this entitlement everyone has. I've got to have something new. Like in the past when we grew up, your father or whatever would buy a car and they'd have them for 15 years until they started becoming unreliable, and then they'd move them on. Now, with 0% finance and all this, 3 years old, I'll just get a new one. Get rid of that car.
Yeah. I know. It does amaze me how many younger people you see and they've got brand new cars. You think, where have you got the money for this? Good old finance.
But I think Holden went knocking off a fair bit of money, like some models, $15,000.
As in to get rid of the old stock.
They've got to get rid of the stock. I mean, imagine how many Commodores they've got sitting here.
Imagine what you could pick up a Commodore for.
You'd have enough change to go and buy that crate LSA and drop it in. I don't think so.
Yeah, just re-engineer the whole car.
It's not the greatest looking car.
But you never know. As a family car, you just want a wagon or something.
Yeah.
You could probably actually pick one up pretty cheap. I should think the second-hand market, aren't they? Or within no time, weren't they under 20 grand?
The depreciation on them was bad. And a lot of people, realistically aren't going to want to buy a car knowing that there's not
the brand
that much
exist.
support
Yeah.
I know Holden have said I think they're going to make spare parts for another 10 years, but yeah. It'll be...
it is an Opel sight overseas, though.
It'll be like owning a Renault. Hey, what do you want? I want some spark plugs. That's $600. Have you got them in stock? No. 6 weeks. 6 weeks.
Oh, yeah,
away.
I've seen blokes with cars like mine. I think I need to re-screen. Oh, that's a 4-week wait. Jeez. So late last year, you did a top 10 dyno video, what you've covered at the dyno sales, big numbers, and of course, people aren't happy, as always. So many RBs do something different. So I thought, really? We had a lot of RBs in this video, so I went and double checked it. Just how many cars in the top 10 video are RBs? One. So I guess you just can't please them, can you?
But even if there were 10 RBs, I mean, obviously you try and film different, but it's a popular engine, and what are we supposed to just fudge the figures?
The guy must have been an LS fan, considering I think there was like 4 LSs in it. He didn't make a mention of that. Our RX-8, or should I say RX-8 Salt Mine video, never ceases to amaze me in the comments on this.
They're all from overseas.
The RX-8's not a bad car if you've ever driven one. They're about 150 horsepower off where they need to be exciting.
Yeah, well, that's just your opinion. This bloke did not like how Broomy was using his torque wrench. It surprises me how many experienced mechanics tighten and undo wheel nuts pulling up, not pushing down. How's your back going? Hernia much? It's almost as bad as you nuggets saying stick shift here in Australia.
Love the stick shift.
Stick shift.
Let's see that in an instant replay.
Broomy takes the safety aspect of this stuff very seriously. Haven't you noticed the Chinese work boots he wears every episode? What we didn't show you in that episode is after Broomy was mucking around with those wheel nuts, I had to take him to the local ER. Hernia each side. Like seriously, look at the crap people pick in videos. I'm at the point now, I'm like, I don't actually know whether these are real or trolling.
It's almost closing time at the Ipswich pub when the hot-headed hoon rolls in. Bystanders egging him on as smoke fills the air.
Saw this video recently. Look at this bloke. He's working that single pegger.
Come on, you weak! Witnesses told 9 News the male driver returned to show off 3 times.
So you also uploaded a new episode of Project Nomang. That's the BARRA in the Commodore. And of course...
Sick of the barras. Just over the barras.
Everyone is over the barras, but you're going to see more BARRA content from us. Now this is about, you mentioned the screamer pipe. You hate screamer pipes on barras. I don't blame you. And of course you kept saying, I don't want a screamer pipe, but a screamer went on it.
A screamer pipe on a well-sorted turbo LS sounds
Mint. BARRA.
Nah.
That's some next level R&D, installing a screamer pipe next to oil pan, only to cook the engine oil. So of course, you must have obviously had the screamer actually facing the sump. Like just
the sump, yeah.
into the side of the sump, that's where it was going.
Does this guy not know how a wastegate works? Like, it's not just like a blowtorch at the sump the entire time.
You're pointing it at the sump, surely.
Well, it's not at the sump, is it? Clearly, it's just next to the sump. Yeah, but this is like a blowtorch, apparently. Yeah, but like, does he not know anything like, when you drive, there's a thing called like wind, like air is moving around the car. Does he not realise that?
How about not having a screamer pipe to begin with? Plumb your external gate back into your downpipe.
Did this guy watch the video? That's all I was saying the whole video. I don't want a screamer pipe.
You can also modify your turbo exhaust housing to have an external gate welded on it for more quicker, accurate boost control, and again plumb it back because of space.
It's clear people just comment without even watching. That's exactly what is on the car. It's coming out of the exhaust housing. I think people don't understand the relationship a screamer is, honestly, to the actual wastegate.
I think they think it's the same thing.
No, I don't think they don't understand how a wastegate works. I think they think.
No, but they think wastegate and screamer, and as in they actually think it's the same thing. So if someone mentions you've got a wastegate, that means you've got a screamer pipe.
Yeah, but they also think, I think that the screamer pipe is just part of the actual exhaust system. Like you're just offshooting some of it to make more noise.
No.
Like the screamer pipe's not active about 98% of the time.
You can also make a custom exhaust manifold to bring your turbo more close to the front, and you will have more room to play with your screamer pipe. People love these screamer pipes.
Do you not miss the part where the car's got a standard turbo on it, so why wouldn't you just use the standard manifold? If you'd actually watched the series, the whole point of it was to try and use as many OE parts as possible and to do it on somewhat of a realistic budget.
Yeah.
So that someone could follow and go, hey, here's a way you can do it using an OE part.
And you've actually mentioned multiple times once this car's running, the point of it is the first stage is to see kind of what power and how kind of fast it is on these OE parts and push them before you think, well, now it's time to change something.
Make some changes. We didn't see the point in building the car first off with everything on it. Because then what do you do with it? At least you can run it and go, okay, now we're just going to change one part and we'll see how it
If you're building something similar too, and you see, okay, this thing's got a GT47 and alloy rods, that's not really comparable to if you just want to drop a BARRA as a conversion.
Anyway, whatever. Everyone knows better. What else is happening, Jordo? So I hear the DeLorean is coming back, or might be making a comeback.
Oh, great Scott!
Have you seen how much new old stock they've got sitting there? They've got heaps of stuff.
Well, it's because no one bought them back in the day, did they?
They've got all like remanufactured panels. They've got a lot of existing ones that weren't used. But there's something to do with, there's a lot of requirements around what, I don't think it would have the old engine, if I'm right, with it in it or something. It was a pile of junk. People would love to see that car come back. It's been talking about, will it come back next year? There's a lot of legal issues with the brand.
Well, they were so expensive and the performance was terrible. And everything went south pretty quickly. So they've got stock. I think, is it right they had enough parts to basically make another 5,000?
I don't know if it was that many, but there's articles here floating around. Will they, won't they? Is it going to happen? I've seen articles like this going on for about the last 12 months. So I don't know if you know more about this DeLorean thing, but
I mean, granted...
That would be cool to see, like, retro kind of new DeLoreans. They'd have to obviously update them and make them a little bit nicer to drive, surely. Imagine going to buy an old DeLorean and it drove like an old DeLorean, my God.
Yeah, but they would still want to keep it in the theme, everything.
Oh, yeah. It'll still look like an old DeLorean.
Yeah.
Well, it actually says here, potentially they could allow some acts, like as in some road act, could allow them to build 325 cars a year.
Yeah.
And they've got new old stock with a warehouse full of 3.5 million parts and 96% availability, which means that must mean how much percentage of the entire car they've got available there.
Yeah, but how many, how much does that equate to in terms of, I know they would have a lot more parts.
It says here, it's actually, they've got enough parts, it's actually quite easy to actually build the cars again.
Yeah. I think there's a few parts apparently they've got to remanufacture, but it's not a big deal.
It says here too, they would probably upgrade the interior with Bluetooth, navigation and smartphone, that kind of stuff.
Just improve little things, but it's still in essence the original car. And they're not going to use that Rover engine.
It does say here, the original engine was a 2.9 litre V6 Peugeot, Renault, Volvo engine, they're calling it. It made 96 kilowatts. It says the new engine would be more like a 260 kilowatt.
Yeah.
So they'd need to upgrade a bit in that car to handle that kind of power. And what about an electric motor? I don't know. I just sit there thinking, I'm always...
Get a few electric DeLoreans, mate.
Yeah, I'm always thinking, if they made a DeLorean, even in small numbers, that'd be cool.
Really cool.
Did you see this? The Toyota Supra already getting a power upgrade?
Yeah, they're giving it about another 50 horsepower from memory.
250 kilowatts up to 285.
I think when it first came out, the power was pretty kind of not underrated.
They're probably not giving it any more power. They're probably actually just stating what it really makes, or maybe making the horsepower rating a little bit more accurate,
like a Ford,
like a
XR8 or something. Jeez, I can't get over how much hate there is for this car.
The 250, they're talking about, the existing one they're going to upgrade. The 250 kilowatt Super will end up collecting dust at dealerships like the 8-speed Camaros. Top dollar for already a redundant vehicle.
Sure. Rightio, champ.
Toyota failed with the new Supra. We don't care about more power. It's still a BMW heart. We wanted a Toyo heart with reliability. We don't want heart attacks any year soon. What the hell are you talking about? We've covered this before. They even said if Toyota had designed their own 6-cylinder, the car would have US.
Then they'd complain the price is too high.
US, it would have been like another $20,000 or $30,000, and they said the car wouldn't have come out for another 2 to 3 years because of engine development. But always whinging.
It's all these people who complain will never ever buy a new Supra, like ever. They're never going to buy one. I
was Toyota through and through until they watered them down with Subaru and BMW parts. Wrong move, Toyota.
So the alternative is cars like the Supra and the 86, they don't exist. And then you complain there's no cars to buy.
Let's be real, no one gives a shit about this car uglier than my ex's face.
Jeez. You got good taste in women.
The engine is inferior to a 2J even with said emission restrictions.
How is it? Tell me, please explain that.
Everyone knows it's a good engine.
Yeah, but it's inferior. How is it inferior?
Oh, this is gold, this one. Just sell them with no engines and we can do what should have done and start with the 2JZ.
Right.
It's Two JZ turbo engines are pretty cheap at the wreckers, aren't
Yeah,
they?
just go find a complete one at a wreckers. I'm sure you'll be able to get one like that.
Toyota will sell you a car, 80R emissions, compliance to everything with no engine in it. That sounds.
So the car it'll be slower than the existing one with the BMW engine, won't it?
Apparently, I don't think we needed a study to find this, but Americans are still not very interested in electric cars, but compelling reasons to buy persist. So this report, by the way, this is an American report, so excuse the imperial measurements.
No, there's a difference between being interested in one and buying one.
Actually buying one. It says here it costs $546 to drive 15,000 miles per year in a compact electric vehicle, while it costs over $1,200 or 130% more to drive the same distance in a gas car.
I think we know all this already. This is not
But
groundbreaking.
what are these stats based on? Because when you take into account the cost of the car,
You have these. The biggest problem I find with articles like this, they're written by eggheads, and not by automotive people.
I heard this in the news in Australia, I think even yesterday, and they were saying about how, like, they talk about a misleading headline. They were going on about, in 2019 there was a 300% increase in electric car sales, and then you think, my God, 300%.
Yeah.
Then you read it, and it's gone from like 2,000 cars to 6,000. Now, 6,000 cars Australia-wide is like a drop in the ocean compared to how many cars are sold, right?
But then also there's a fact like, how accurate is it? Because Tesla's sales aren't really audited. It's just them. Don't get me wrong, they're selling them, but it's just them saying, "Hey, we sold 2,000
But
cars this year."
they made a point to, and they said the cheapest in Australia, the cheapest electric car is a Nissan Leaf. And it's like $58,000 or something. That's crazy money for what that car is.
For what it is, yeah.
And then they kind of said, that's double. What? And I'm thinking it's more than double.
It's more than double.
You can easily get a Mazda 3, and it's not even bottom of the range, like a mid-range one for like 25 grand. And
Well,
that's like a decent.
A good
small
friend
car.
of ours wanted to buy an electric van, and besides the fact that the specs on it were deplorable, it seriously had a range of like 150 k's, which we can do easily in a day. And this is a business thing. You can't be coming home at lunchtime and charging it for 4 hours.
And if he loads that up with all the equipment he carries around, I wonder where that
not
range
to mention
is.
that's 150, like depending on the weather, obviously changes. But all that aside, and it was so slow. 0 to 100 was like 20 seconds or something ridiculous. That aside, it was like 53 grand, and the petrol version, which was miles faster, obviously, was like 25. We were looking at going, we could buy 2 vans and still have some change over one, and then we asked them, how many have you sold? They wouldn't give us a figure. Well, have you sold any?
Nah.
And this is the problem. It's like, you know, the old saying, build it and they will come type thing. It's like, I'd be happy to look at an electric car, but I'm not paying $50,000 for what is essentially like a $15,000 to $20,000 car. You drive it out of the dealership, it's probably worth $45,000.
The turning point, I reckon, will be when in this country we see, say, a $30,000 electric car, and it's a decent car that's comparable to a similar small car, and then people will go, you know what? I'll still have a petrol car, and if you're upgrading one of them, we'll go to an electric.
I think
I think we're waiting for that. And
but everyone goes on about the range. I don't think this whole range anxiety. I don't think that is the big issue.
The range is pretty sorted too, and the technology's got good that.
For the most part, look, the range is enough. Even if it's 300 kilometres, everyone goes, I'm going to drive my car to Alice Springs and back. Like, yeah, cool. That's not the majority of people, is it, driving? Like, let's say it's 300 k's in a small car. That's fine for 90% of people doing their daily stuff. The problem is not the range, it's the price. Everything comes down to money.
Those prices have to come down dramatically.
But you've got this same problem. I mean, are people going to bring in electric cars here and put infrastructure in if no one's buying them? Chicken or the egg scenario.
Yeah, and I think there's also a cost too of the charging equipment in your house on top of the car.
Yeah, but if you dare, it's like it's like anything. It's like the climate or electric cars. If you just ask a question about something, it's like you're against the whole thing. It's like, no, I'm not at all. But you can't just sugarcoat everything except everyone to swallow it.
It'd be interesting to see in another 12 months, has it improved at all? Because I don't think it's improved here in this country. Nothing's happened in a year.
I think, to be honest, I think cars like in Australia especially, that are going to be far more popular in the next 5 years is like a genuine hybrid car. Like some of the stuff Toyota sells, where it's still got an ICE style engine in it, but you might have a family type car, but overall it's using hardly any petrol.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's far more appealing to most people. And I think long-term reliability, I think they're pretty sorted.
Back on the new cars, I see the Alfa Romeo, I'm going to pronounce this completely wrong, Giulia Quadrifoglio, that's terrible. Anyway.
God, that should be in the intro.
Limited
Hang on,
edition.
say that again, the Giulia Quadrifoglio.
I'm not saying that again.
Say that again.
Limited edition, just a lazy 85 kilowatt power upgrade.
Is that it?
This thing's a 2.9 litre V6, makes 460 kilowatts.
That's the Ferrari, the cut-down Ferrari
Yeah,
V8,
yeah.
isn't it?
That's 620 horsepower.
Jeez.
In a family four-door sedan. We actually just
3
saw
litre
one today. They look awesome.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they
Freaking
are.
bloody nice,
Looking car.
bloody nice car. I have read on the internet. I don't know how.
What's the price?
I didn't look.
They ran 130?
I think they're a lot.
Oh.
Have you seen this? Have you seen the new Nissan VL Turbo?
I heard about it. What's the VL stand for?
It says it's actually got a badge VL Turbo on this Nissan.
So this thing would just be like dosing.
Yeah, just reading,
saw a picture of it.
reading from the Bangkok Post, because I think this car is directly out of Thailand or Asia, or some part up there.
But the car itself did not look that flash, I thought. From the front, she was pretty ugly.
Jesus, it's a Nissan Almera 1.0 litre turbo. 1 litre.
1 litre.
It's like about 100 horsepower CVT Nissan VL Turbo. I mean, this is just...
It's like half the power of the old 25-year-old, 35-year-old VL Turbo.
This is just...
The future of motoring.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just hilarious. Nissan VL
What does the
Turbo.
VL mean? That's obviously the
It's a very odd badge to have on a car, though. VL Turbo. But anyway.
VL.
A-grade Nugget. I'm sure they're not going to be sold in Australia.
Knowing Nissan's killer range of cars, they probably will bring them in. Just add to a whole fleet of complete nuggets.
Another mention of electric cars. The electric cars outsell manuals in the USA, or should we say stick shift.
Stick shifts. That's a bit of a telling sign.
Electric vehicles represented 1.6% of new car sales in the USA compared to 1.1% for the three-pedal cars. You've noticed with manuals too, they're kind of in the absolute...
Yeah, they're in niche, hot hatch type cars.
Yeah, hot hash type performance cars, because it's a driver, a driver wants... They want that type of car, they want a manual, or they're in an absolute bare bones $15,000.
Oh, like a Honda... Is it a Honda Jazz or Toyota Jazz?
But even them, they're not selling them many. I don't think they're selling many. I think they just do it because they're getting to the point where they know no one will buy them, so they don't even offer them. They just put some junk clunker CVT in them.
Most young people can't even drive a stick shift. It's kind of a disaster, isn't it? If you like manual cars, yeah, there's not much to buy. You have to buy a small car.
That's why people are just basically just putting the old sequentials in.
Are they really manuals? Are they manuals if you're not using a clutch?
I think if you're using a clutch to take off the line, they're a manual.
Yeah, they are, but of course they are. But what about if you've got a
DSG? They're a manual.
Is it a Bruno drive? Is that where you've got the torque converter? You know, they run a torque converter, but it's still a manual.
You're still shifting it, yeah.
Well, it's a manual gear, not like a manual valve body. It's not an automatic. It's a manual transmission with a torque converter. Is that a manual?
You see that? Well,
there's no clutch.
Yes, it's a bit weird, that one. It's like a hybrid, isn't it? But you see them in drag racing. If you haven't seen them before, look them up. They're quite interesting.